your purpose is not your goal. Your goal is your purpose. And if your goal is your purpose, then once you identify that purpose, then your only job to do then is to serve your purpose. And that is it. The expectation, everything is, I want it now, right? The thing is, when it comes to your purpose, it's not now. It is potentially a lifelong process. No one's ever talked about this, right? And this is what I am mentioning. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm trying to tell people is there is an inner cosmic sat-nav, yeah? And this guiding you is called your intuition.
Welcome everybody to another Martial Mind Power podcast. I'm Jatinder with my co-host Sifu Lak, and on today's episode, we're just going to see where the universe takes us. So Sifu Lak, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Just very intrigued with this whole metaverse conversation that's been taking place at this moment in time. You know, they're finally thinking about going fully virtual with these things. So yeah, interesting times.
Well, you mentioned the metaverse. I've taken it you're talking about metaverse in a digital respect, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Well, actually, you know what? I think without much further ado, we should dive into our Bible and see what comes up, because there's the real metaverse, and then there's the digital metaverse, which is a simulated metaverse of the reality of unreality.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So I was just thinking that'd be so cool if magic happened here. You know what? I think I've just taken out the bookmark my brother had left in the book. Oops. Sorry, I'm a joke. Alrighty. You want to say stop?
Stop.
Okay, what we got? So we have work on the root, not the fruit.
Wow. Didn't we do that last week?
Did we do that last week?
No, we didn't.
I don't think so.
We talked about it, didn't we?
We talked about it. That's right. We talked about it with a friend.
All right. Interesting how that comes up, hey?
Yeah, so that's page 700.
700, dead, huh? Wow. All right. Okay. Work on the fruit. Work on the root, not on the fruit.
Yeah,
okay.
I was kind of hoping something around the universe would come up. I was testing the theory, but it looks like the book has other plans for us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do you know what? Whatever the plans are, they are what they are. And here we are, working on the root, not on the fruit. Okay, so we already had a discussion on this. So maybe for the viewers and the people watching, you can give them your view on what your insights into that koan.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose this one's probably the one that's similar to that thing where you hear what you sow is what you reap, to some degree. So, it's about, I suppose it's working on the things that are not necessarily what other people see. So this could like background stuff that you're working on. It's, the structures and methodologies that you might be putting in place in regards to a project. And then, you're focusing on the foundation, as in like, if there's a house that's being built, you're digging downwards first before you build up on it. So it's looking at those kind of things about the root, the seed, and then later on how that will just flourish into what it needs to flourish into, right?
Absolutely. Good connection with this one, huh? Yeah. You're 100%, on the right point with that one. And I think quite often what happens is there's too much focus on the result, and the result, unfortunately, is a misdirection of efforts, because the results can also be fabricated, right, to look like whatever you visualize it to be, but it's not necessarily sustainable. And the reason it's not sustainable is because there's no foundation. Okay. So you can create an end result, but it's not something that's going to be going to stand the test of time, as if it were. And this is why it's important that when people set goals, that that they there's a beautiful saying. That saying is, your purpose is not your goal. Your goal is your purpose. And if your goal is your purpose, then once you identify that purpose, then your only job to do then is to serve your purpose, and that is it. So with that purpose, there comes a foundation of work, a body of work upon which all your servitude sits, right? And everything kind of works from that point onwards. So it's really important to lay that solid foundation down, sow seeds in fertile soil, and make sure you apply water and apply sunshine and all the nutrients and minerals and vitamins and the essential ingredients that are necessary for that seed to grow and flourish. And that is focused effort on your purpose. That is it. There's nothing really special about that. Problem is, people get too caught up in the end result. And that end result is what this koan is referring to as a fruit. Don't work on the fruit, work on the root, the foundations. Because when you start focusing on that, then guess what? You kind of almost skip over the foundation, the roots of your whole purpose. So it's really important that you start with that, because if you don't start with that, it's a huge self-misdirection, right? And the whole world's doing it to the most part, because people just want a quick result. The beauty about this modern age, this technological era that we're in, is that one, we've managed to speed up things that were archaically slow previously. Things like email, right? Before, you were only at the mercy of the postal service. Okay. And now you've got email, for instance, right? And it's instant. And because we've kind of gone from something that could take several hours to a day or several days or even several weeks or even several months, if it's like shipping by ship, or airmail, which would take, can be, used to be, I think, 2 or 3 day service and so on, you've got it straight away. And all of a sudden, the time it takes to process things is now whittled down to, how quickly can you read your emails and respond, do what you need to do to respond. And sometimes, I work in corporates, and one of the things about the corporate environment is you sometimes get so busy that you don't have time. You feel like you don't have time. It's overwhelming to read an email before, and somebody else is asking you to pick up theirs. And so it's an illness that we've got into, because these expectations that we've set around the way we work are causing suffering, are causing ill working practices, therefore having an ill effect on our bodies, our minds, emotions, and our spirit. So as things are sped up, our expectations around things being done quickly are raised, right? And that also goes to like fast food, for instance, is a result of what would otherwise have been, going to a poultry farm, say if you wanted to pick up some chicken, for instance, right? Picking a chicken, have the poultry farmer slaughter it, defeather it, and then cut it up and bag it up for you to take away, right? To then have the food production system, right, provide that food, say chicken, into packages that you can just pick up off the shelf from your local supermarket. Now it cuts out all of that. to home delivery, right? You can get everything home delivered now, and now things get faster and faster and faster. The expectation, everything is I want it now, right? The thing is, when it comes to your purpose, it's not now. It is potentially a lifelong process. Okay, and because a lifelong process is one of the things I was talking to my students about in class this week was, the thing about martial arts is it's prolonged perfect practice. So prolonged perfect practice with perseverance and perspiration. Okay, it takes time. It takes time. And when you're talking about your goal, your purpose, and making your purpose, your goal, it takes time. And another, to use the seed analogy is, this, as they say, the harvest is not in the same season as the sowing. So we have to make sure that we've got patience. So we can't take this, the societal conditioning around having it right away, and mentality, and apply it to this. We can't. We actually are at the mercy of greater forces, and those greater forces means that you need to readjust the way you work within this climate that we're in, within the environment, the socio-political, economic, and technological environment that we need to adjust ourselves so that we don't get sucked in by the way that climate works. And in fact, we need to get in tune with our cosmic selves, okay? And our cosmic selves work on a whole different, if I was to say, a timeless time and a spaceless space, okay? It doesn't adhere to these rules and these protocols that we have within the current socio-political, eco-technological climate that we're in. This is all man-made, it's all artificial, and it will be short-lived. The cosmic, spaceless space, timeless time is eternal. And really, we need to get in tune with that. And in order to get in tune with that, it takes time, right? It takes time to connect to yourself. It takes a lot of work. I already mentioned the prolonged perfect practice with perseverance and perspiration. It takes a long time. So you can't expect it straight away. So that's, I think, one of the big things about it, because I think that's really the core reason why people are focusing on the fruit and not on the root.
No, definitely. I know what you're saying, and we see it all the time. Like if you take social media as an example, we see people on these platforms in the metaverse and all these things that they're going towards. They're looking at this projected kind of lifestyle that other people are living. And there's an element of people that want that as well, right? And they're kind of expecting it just overnight. So as you were saying, they're looking at the fruit thinking that's where I want to be at. And they're trying to do these things, but they haven't looked at everything else that goes in between, right? And they're just cutting corners. And when people try to cut corners, they're trying to cheat the system. And you can't do that. You can't just when you warm up tea, it takes a bit of time to boil the water. Right? If you plant a seed, it's going to take certain time before it flourishes and whatnot. And I think what's happening nowadays is, you're right, that people are looking at things, comparing it. They just want it straight away, and they're not willing to do the work and put the energy and effort in order to flourish and build those foundations that they can actually stand on, but cut corners and try to just do things as it is. I get tons of people, lots, who do that kind of process, and then they come to you and they say, "Oh, we're trying to make this thing work in in the digital space. It doesn't work." And I look at it and think, "Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this?" All the things they should have done before they got to that point, and they're like, "No, I haven't done it." I'm like, and then you wonder why it's not working.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the clue is in the Quran itself. The first word is work. Work on the root, not on the fruit. So, with having said that, it's the koans. The koans, it is what it says on the tin. You've got to put the work in. The work is energy expended, over time and distance. And that's the key, over time and distance, right?
That's right.
And so, if you move an object from point A to point B and it's got a mass, you need to overcome any frictional forces, any other forces that you need to do in order to push that object from A to B. Yeah. That takes work. Okay. It's just physics, right?
Exactly. And there's practice, and it's like perfect example I can share was like way back when we decided to do podcasting, when I was like exploring the whole kind of podcast arena. We weren't good at it. We didn't know what we were going to do, right? And but we knew we have to get started. So it's only now when you look back at like some of the earlier episodes, we'd be like, oh, interesting how we dealt with that conversation based on how we're dealing with it now. And it's like you said, it's practice over time. Yeah. You have to start somewhere. So you might as well start and get better over time. And don't be worried about, if people are thinking about they need to look good or look a certain way, what other people are going to think and all these kind of things. It doesn't really matter, because when you're starting off in a situation or scenario, people don't know who you are anyway, right? Yeah. It's only over time they get to know who you are. Absolutely. Right? And by that time, you'll have good content out there, and whatever you're working on, it'll be kind of in a more ready state.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also depends, like, on what that purpose is. If your purpose is, you have to put yourself out in the public eye and share something, then that's what you need to do. Okay. But are you doing it with the right intent? So exactly. Intent really is another big element of working on the root, not on the fruit, is operating with the right intention. You have the wrong intention. So, we're here sharing this message, but if we were here to build our own characters up, our own, avatars up, so to speak, we're gonna get caught up in a hole with that wave and get swept by it. Okay, and that result's not going to be a good one, because actually we lose sight of what we're meant to do. And our focus is on what we're meant to do, our purpose, and our purpose is to share divine knowledge and wisdom through our own experiences that we've had, through our own knowing, not just belief, through our own knowing. And when you're sharing from that place of knowing, remember, believing is not knowing something, but having faith that something does exist and will exist. It's like if somebody calls you on a mobile phone, that there's another person on the other line talking to you, and that person is alive and able to have that conversation with you and functioning, at least to that point, that have that conversation with you, right? But just because you can't see them while you're talking to someone doesn't mean that they don't exist. Okay, that's almost a belief that person is real, alive, kicking, and able to talk to you, right? And it's that's the knowing. You don't believe that person is there. You know that person is there, and it's when you get to that level of experience, then you understand from that standpoint, and you share from that standpoint. That's authenticity. Yeah. That's what ultimate authenticity is. But when you don't know, and it's just a belief system, you're not serving from a place of authenticity. You're serving from a place which you think exists, but you haven't been there yourself. So how can you share something where you've never been to? It's like saying, talking about the Eiffel Tower and what it would feel like to go up to the top and experience the wind and everything else, and the views across Paris, but never actually having been there. I mean, it's not real, and it's not authentic, and it's you're not coming from a place of experience. How can you talk about it? And therefore, you'll be misguiding people by not actually embodying the experience and being part of it yourself.
It's funny though how like those two things work together, because you got the experience of something and you got the belief of something, right? Yeah. The experience is what solidifies it. It's the knowing element of it. The belief is the curiosity element of it as well. So they kind of tie in nicely, because in one way, if you don't have the belief to do something, you may never experience it, and vice versa, right?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say, you're right. You have to start from a place of faith, right? That's where belief lies in faith, right? And that from the faith, the idea is that you do the work to gain the experience, whether it's a physical experience, a mental experience, an emotional experience, or a spiritual experience, to have that realization through that experience. And that understanding comes through that, right? But yes, you're right. They are linked, but you can't teach from faith.
Yeah. No, exactly. I just wanted to share a story that comes to mind while you saying that. So do you remember when this Clubhouse thing like took off, right?
Yeah.
And it was during obviously lockdown and stuff. There's this new technology that has come out. It's an audio-based social media platform, right? And it did go a bit crazy in the sense that people were talking about it, think, okay, how can we utilize this space? Is there something new? And I was on it listening, going into these rooms, having conversations and whatnot. And I was sharing with others, and I kept on going into the room and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Like that question kept popping up for me. What am I doing here? Why am I here? Like, what is it that I'm trying to do with these conversations, right? What's actually going on? So I go to the room, I listen, I try to participate, and something just was not clicking with me, right? Until one day I was there and I was in a room and I sat there and I think one of the speakers must have shared something. And I realized at that moment in time, I thought, I get it now. I get my intention. Like I was trying to go into this space to do something that wasn't authentic, right? But the only thing I can really do is just share. It's just share what I know, right? And that's the only way. Like if I'm in those rooms and I wanted to add value to somebody's life, if I shared from the experience of it, it was worth it. If I'm just there, just having a conversation with now no meaning, no reason for me being there, it was inauthentic, right? And as soon as I thought about that, I don't think I've been on the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing, right? Here's the biggest teaching out of that, right? And I think the biggest teaching out of that is in order to live your purpose, you need to know it. In order to know it, you need to have the experience that gives you the understanding to know it.
Yeah.
Right. Therefore, the only thing you can do is do the work, right, to get that experience.
That's
right.
It.
Do the work, get the experience, understand it, know it, share it.
That's
there
it.
You go. That's
exactly.
the golden formula right there, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because now it's different. Now, if I went into one of the rooms and I came from that place of sharing, it's just become so much more meaningful, so much deeper and impactful.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like, what angle am I looking at this? Is this positioning? Is this Is this that? What's going on here? And it was nonsense at the end of it for me. I realized I thought, oh, I got it. Yeah. Sharing is the key there.
Yeah, well, I get it, man. Again, that was you trying to experience it, right? That was you trying to understand it, right? So, yeah. And I think this is again another way of trying to learn how to experience, understand, and know that, and know yourself. I call it your true, authentic, high self. And when you align, you understand what that is your purpose. And when you understand that purpose, just do the work. Because the moment you have that epiphany, that aha moment, that eureka moment, that revelation about who you are and what work, what reason you were put on this planet for. That's when the work starts. That's when you need to say, all right, now what? And that now what is, all right, well, you know what you need to do. Just go and do it now. Off you go. Right?
Exactly.
What are you waiting for? Therein lies the secret, that there is no secret, right? The only thing that is a secret is, who are you? Right? That's the key thing. So if you can reveal that, which is the hardest thing, most people go through life not realizing and not seeing what they are within themselves, miss a trick. And unfortunately might end up on their deathbed if they got the time to question these things, because not everyone has a contemplative passing. But if you did, many people ask themselves that question: what did I actually do with my life?
Yeah.
What was my route?
Exactly.
What did I need to work on? And we've mentioned this before. Not midlife crisis, but midlife reflection, which I think I've said this many a time, but I think that's the time where you're and I'm going to take somebody like myself, where you've gone through your education, you've got an equal amount of years, if not more, in industry with experience, and then you get to a point where you're like, okay, but what have I actually achieved with my life? Now I've got money, I've got the resources, I've got the experience and knowledge, but you still ask yourself, okay, there's a void, something feels like it's missing, right? What is that? And that question comes up. And do you go and try and go out and fill that void with some sense gratification toys, new car, house, I don't know, speedboat, whatever you want to do, right? Or give yourself a thank you present. Well, you've got this far, go reward yourself. You worked really hard, you studied, you worked, and so on. You might have raised a family in the way, during that time. But ultimately, that point is really, okay, what am I here to do? Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the bountiful gifts Mother Earth has bestowed on us within this lifetime, the physical gifts, the finer things in life. We're here for a physical experience. So that's part of what we're here to do, is to experience that. People have different aspirations on the level of material sense gratification that they want, but the trick is not to get bound by it. Okay, so do treat yourself, by all means. Treat yourself. Don't get bound by it. Once you get bound, it becomes like an anchor. It's going to sink you, right? You're not going to move from where you are, and you could end up getting submerged and drown as a consequence of holding on to that. So make sure you're free of that. So then, what's left? What's left is for you to flow with your purpose. Okay, once you identify that, and this is all part of the root aspect. But again, coming back to your purpose is not your goal. Your goal is your purpose, and this is the whole work on the root. Keep working on the root. The root, there's so much more to it than meets your eye, as we're already kind of like revealing, and a lot of things are surfacing as a consequence of this conversation, and is tackling that holistically. Now, people say, oh, you know what, I now discovered my purpose, now I need to do that. Well, do you know what? I went through that for a long time, right? I wanted to follow my purpose full time, right? And essentially give up my corporate life. The thing was, the fact of the matter was, my corporate life was funding me pursuing and fulfilling my life's purpose, and allowed me to separate the two. So I wasn't dependent on my purpose for me to sustain my livelihood, right? So there's another, what seems like a dichotomy, two things that don't really mix. Actually, they're complementary. Yeah. And one accessorizes the other, with you able to fulfill your purpose without any strings attached, without expecting anything from it.
That's it.
And that's just one way of doing it. There's many ways.
That's amazing, Lax, because, for you to share that is very powerful place, because people don't realize, they don't even see it like that, because they always, you hear these conversations about, the 9-to-5 dish it is rubbish, is this, that, and the other. And I hear that and I think that's nonsense. I mean, I'm in business for myself, right? I've been in it for ages, but I could never tell somebody to leave their job, right? Because there's advantages in it. There's so much you can do while you're working away. It's actually simpler. It's so much simpler than running your own business, because you turn up, you do what you need to do, you get paid for it, and then you do whatever you want to do with the money you've made. Yeah. Right. It's amazing. It's like, why would people look at it as a bad thing? Why can't they just see it that, like you just said, it fuels the things you want to do? It's like the yin and the yang working together, right? And you have the joy, and you have the freedom of joy to do it like that. Now, at the same time, though, I know that people that have discovered their purpose, and you know what, that's what they're meant to do. So guess what? Whatever they're doing for their livelihood just goes boom, switches over in an instant. Obviously they after putting the work in on the route, right? It switches over, but it almost feels like superfluous, because that's how they're meant to survive and live out their livelihood, and that's how it goes. So the thing is, there's no fabricated formula to this. You need to just follow it.
and just keep putting the effort in, and then see which way the flow of that water is going, and then just go with it. Because, you know, the natural flow of the cosmos is the path of least resistance. Now, people think, all right, you know, the path of least resistance is laziness. No, not if you put effort into it. That's the key. That's the key. People think, all right, you know what, path of least resistance, you're just being lazy, you can take shortcuts, you're going to do whatever's easiest. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about lazy buggers, right, that can't be bothered to do anything and just kind of float, you know, float in life, you know, like a boat without a rudder and a sail. I'm saying you've got a rudder, you've got sails, you've got oars, you've even got a bloody motor in the back here, which has got, you know, pumping out, you know, 20,000 horsepower, right? You can lay down that gas and gun it if you want to. Thing is, right, there's a natural current. And that natural current, I'm talking about the cosmic current, is the way that you're meant to be guided. You need to be tuned with that and go with that. Like I said, some people discover, you know, they're in a job or got a business or whatever, and they transition into fulfilling their purpose and their livelihood within the same space. And there's others like me that actually you end up with your purpose is independent of your day job, so to speak. But guess what? One hand washes the other. Right. And it's okay. So just kind of listen to your inner guidance. You know, we talk about the GPS, right? Global Positioning Service, right? But a lot of people don't really talk about the CPS. Now I've just made this up, right? The CPS, your cosmic positioning.
Cosmic position, yeah. Right? I like.
Well, what about that? Have we? Yeah. No one's ever talked about this, right? And this is what I am mentioning. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm trying to tell people is there is an inner cosmic sat nav, yeah. And this guiding you is called your intuition, right? And you can call it, you know, your gut feeling, your sixth sense, you know, your inner voice. Go with it. Listen to it. Tune into it, go with it, because it's always right. It's always right. And you know, the number of times that this comes up in class, you know, when we talk about the holistic aspect of ourselves, you know, and the one thing that everyone puts their hand up to is, has anybody had an inner feeling about not doing something and then went ahead and did it anyway? Everyone's hand goes up. When you went against that, did it fall to shit? Everyone's hand stays up, right? Why? Because your inner guidance is always right. Your intuition is never wrong, right? So go with it. You have it. We all have one. And guess what? All of our CPSs are connected, right? So we all can feel the same things if it's around the same decision that we're trying to make, if we tune into it.
Definitely. I mean, isn't it interesting though that how that ties in nicely to how, you know, Bruce Lee used to talk about honestly expressing yourself, right? And I remember a quote that's been powerful for me, actually from Guru Nanak, was that they said something about truth is great, but greater still is truth for living, right? Yeah. And I started to dwell on that, like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? And it is pretty much in alignment with honestly expressing yourself. It's like, you know, you're tapping into that honest part of yourself. Yeah. That conversation, that call that's happening inside of you, are you listening to it? Are you listening to that truth? And then going by what that's saying, right? And I think that's a very powerful thing to look at, because when you start to tune into that, you know, you're not up here, you're not in your brain, you're not left, right brain thinking kind of thing. You know, there's no logic and reason, there's no emotion and art. When the feeling comes from almost like your heart. Yeah. Oh, that rhymed. Can I carry on with this song and see how it goes? Yeah. And, you know, just getting in tune to your heart, tapping into that, honestly expressing yourself. And like you said, aligning with your intuition there. It's a powerful place, man. Powerful place.
Absolutely. You know, there's when there's two people that are disputing a thing, you know, they say there's three truths. Person A's truth, person B's truth, and then the truth. In reality, actually, there are four truths, right? Their truth, your truth, the real truth, and the original truth, okay? The original truth is is your, what I would call it, your true authentic higher self, right? And then I would go as far as saying there's a fifth truth, which is the cosmic truth, the universal truth, right? And that is something that is beyond your comprehension, right? The best you could do is discover your original truth, your spiritual essence, is your true authentic high self. Why are you here? Who are you? What are you meant to do? If you can understand that, then the level above that is the ocean of consciousness, as they say, and the truth lies within that, which is universal. That is the greatest truth of all truths. But to merge into that, you need to understand your truth first, your original truth, as I call it. And that's why this book was called The Original Truth, because it's about you discovering your true authentic high self. Through your own self-practice, a practice of self-mastery, practice of self-realization, to bringing it back full circle, to identify what your seed is that you need to sow, so you can focus on that root, grow those roots and focus on them, make them strong.
Yeah, no, I mean, like that's brilliant. I mean, like for those people who might be asking that question, well, how do I actually tap into that, right? Like, how do I actually tap into that? One of the things that I heard, which is I found it really powerful, is like they said that the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life, right? Yeah. So if if anybody is wondering, like, what is that? How do I tap into my true self? And Lax, you can add on to this as well in a moment. Is like, if you can ask those questions, bring those questions up to the surface. What is my purpose life? Where am I meant to be going? How do I go about doing it? Yeah. Right? As opposed to, I don't know what to do. This doesn't make sense. Those questions block you. Whereas when you ask questions that are intriguing and creating curiosity, it's training your brain and telling your brain to look in a different direction and be a problem solver in that scenario. Because we are conditioned and we don't realize that we're conditioned, right? Yeah. It's only when you start to ask this question where you could go past the filth of your mind almost, right? When you can go past those moments and see that original truth. Yeah, and questions is a good way to get through that. Is there anything else you can give tips on and how people can tune into that?
I think the thing is that this is to discover your truth, and you try to discover the reason you're on this planet, your purpose, as if it were. There's various ways that you could get in tune with that. Number one, I think, is meditation, right? It's easy, accessible. You can do it on your own. The thing is, to really get good at meditation, you always have to have a teacher that's going to show you the way. And ultimately, you need a teacher that understands himself or herself, that's been there, knows it, so they can teach that to you. Don't go to someone that thinks they know how to meditate, but is not there themselves, right? And I can't stress that enough, that the teacher must already be qualified. The only thing that qualifies a person is that they already know, because they've already had the experience, the understanding leading to the knowing, right? So that's number one. So it doesn't matter which teacher and which walk of life, whatever discipline it is. In this case, meditation is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is plant medicine. Right? A plant medicine can reveal a lot about you. Okay. There's lots of different types of plant medicines. Without going into plant medicines right now, because I'm sure koan will come up where we talk about plant medicines. So we'll reserve the insights of that at that time. Okay. But plant medicine is another one. Okay. Now, plant medicine is one of my shaman friends says quite often. She says, ritually, not habitually. That means when you take plant medicine, you do it with time, traditional honor, okay, in a ritualistic way, not just as a habit, like as if you're smoking a cigarette or whatever it might be, okay, or having a cup of tea, whatever it might be. It needs to be done ritually. That's number two. And number three, I think, is a kind of more of a recent eye-opener for me. Is there are people that have skills that can see your spiritual essence, or can read or determine your spiritual essence and your purpose through different formulaic modalities. For example, there's astrology, okay, that can be used, numerology that can be used, and I'm sure in other cultures there's other similar practices that also can be used. Now, Hindus, when when a baby is born in a Hindu family, for instance, they do something called a janam kundali,
Yeah.
or janam patri.
Yeah.
And what that is an astrological chart. It gives you kind of like, key dates in your life and key things, key energies, what's good for this person, what's not good for this person, what kind of partner is good for them in terms of like energies and cosmic layouts and energetic imprints and so on. Numerology is very similar, okay, but in using numbers based on your name, based on your date of birth, and potentially your place of birth. And again, it can be used to derive that. But there's a lot of people that will do this, and it will give you abstract bits of information that don't necessarily sew together. So it doesn't carry a kind of unified meaning for certain people. But, we know people that are able to do that. So that's another wonderful way where you can get insights into that. So if you've got the right person that's really skilled in that space, bang, you could discover your purpose within a 30-minute reading. All right. And if anybody wants to know and learn more about this, drop an email to info@martialmindpower.com, and we'll send you some information about who to go to in order to do, say, a numerological reading to discover your purpose, to discover your talents, your passions, your challenges in life, and any pinnacle moments that you're gonna experience, like key dates or key years that certain things are going to happen for you. Why? Because I've had readings, and guess what? Absolutely spot on. JT, you've had a reading, absolutely spot on, right? So the thing is that you can have an experience in life, and when you get a reading and look back and think, wow, actually, do you know what? That's spot on. And I know what my true purpose in life is, even before I spoke to my numerology friend, and she told me what I knew, but it was an affirmation. And it's wonderful to hear that, because even my numbers speak to that, right? So when these two things add up or meet in the middle, that it's many different ways to reveal the same thing. So that was number 3. Number 4, you've got people that have got a psychic and medium type of skills that can also read into things. Okay, everyone's got at least one, if not more, spirit guides. Okay, some people's spirit guides change over time, right? But there's usually one that stays with you throughout the whole of your physical existence within this lifetime, right? And they could tell you as well. Right. So there are people that can access that information, that have been gifted with the skills and cultivate that over time. That'll be able to read and communicate with your spirit guides, for instance, and be able to communicate that information back to you. Now, there are always skeptics, and if you don't believe it, you don't believe it. That's fine, right? There's just one less route, 2 less routes, 3 less routes, 4 less routes. How are you going to find out? I don't know. Find a way. There's so many, as I say, there's many roads to Edinburgh. Find the one that suits you. If you don't like this, what some people will call hocus pocus routes, then don't do that. No one's forcing you, right? It works for me. I've advised loads of people, it works for them, right? And it's great. But if you don't believe that, then find your own way. What other ways exist out there? We'd love to hear, right, in the comments on our YouTube video, on any comments that if you can make comments on the podcast and so on. We'd love to hear what is working for people, because we're in the business of helping align people to their true purpose, right? So that they can really flourish, right? So that's when the flourishing happens. We haven't even spoke about that, but that's when the fruits and the flowers bloom. And when that blooms, that's when the true fragrance of who you are can spread, and you can make life sweet, not just for yourself, but everyone else. That's what we're in the business of that. I call it business, but that's it. That's our servitude, right? And when we can get someone to that point, guess what? It just makes life beautiful. When you look at fruits, flowers, and the fragrances that spreads around the world, this is the only way that I can see to make the world a better place, by helping people really connect with who they really are. There's too much negativity in this world. There's a lot of shit going on in the world. There's a lot of bad, ugly stuff going on in the world. But if you just keep focusing on that, keep focusing on the news, guess what? All you're going to perpetuate is the fear that's related and attributed to all of that nonsense, right? I'm using nonsense, not in a callous way, but using it in a sense that, you know, how much of that news, that negative news, can you physically change? Can you physically impact and redirect into a different way? And the answer to that is most people have zero effect on any of that. That's why I called it, referred to it as nonsense, not to denigrate it or to lessen its impact on how bad it is, but to show that what can you actually do about it? And most people give up all responsibility and ownership when they realize, fuck, this is too big for me. I'm not going to do anything. They don't do anything at all. They don't even work on their own fucking root, own fucking seed as a consequence. And that's what I'm saying is, this is what we're in the business of doing, is helping people understand if they sow their true seed, right, to lay down their roots, to allow their true plant, their true self to flourish and flower and fruit. Guess what? The world will be a more beautiful place. The world will be a more harmonious place, because you will be connected to your true self. And guess what? When you start doing that, when you start being connected to yourself, you will also see people from where, for their true self. So when you put your hands together and you do the namaste, right? And you greet people, or you go here, or you go here, what that's saying is, I see you. What that's saying is, my spirit sees your spirit. Okay. And this is a recognition of spirit to spirit, not human to human. Okay. This is a higher recognition of one another. Okay. And a recognition that we are one. All right. That we are one. Now that's where we need to get to. Okay. And the only way to get to that is to work on yourself. The only way to work on yourself is to make sure you nurture, you sow your seed, make sure that you're aware that the harvest is not in the same season as the sowing. Make sure you water your seed, make sure you apply sunshine, make sure you apply nutrients, minerals, vitamins, and enough food, soul food and nourishing food into that seed, so that the roots grow deep, strong, stable, and your plant grows, flourishes, so that one day the flowers and the fruits will bloom and blossom, and that fragrance will spread out into the world, because we need that. We need that. We need to beautify our world. We need to beautify our Mother Earth. We need to beautify one another. And we can only do that when we start to work on the root, not on the fruit.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And I just, like, a few things that are coming up for me while you were talking about that is, like, if you look at Bruce Lee and how he went about when he did his martial arts, he basically cut through the noise, right? He was looking at all these different martial arts systems. He cut through the noise and looked at what works and what doesn't work, right? And he also said, you know, in a situation scenario, it's all about taking what works and making it your own and discarding everything else, right? Yeah. So that's what we're talking about here, is like, cut through the noise, right? Find what works for you. And that could be anything, like the various different modalities, different things we spoke about. Find what works for you best, because one thing is not going to be the same for everybody, right? It's going to be different for everyone, because we're all made up in a different way. Our brain and neurology, everything, our environment, it makes us different to everybody, right? So you have to find your own unique expression, right, of what you are in this world. So it's very good to kind of take on board, cut through the noise, right, and you know, grow in that sense. And the other thing you mentioned about like, just something that's coming up is, you know, the word universe, right? The word literally means one song. Yeah, uni means one, verse means song. So when you translate it, it just actually means one song. Yeah. And we're all part of the universe. We're all part of this one song. And the one song's got many sides, right? It's got many things going on. So it's quite interesting. Just wanted to share on that. And did I have anything else I want to say? Yeah. The other thing is, Lax, you mentioned was, you know, when you're talking about a teacher, it is possible to have bad information, right? It is possible that somebody shares with you bad information. They might have done something, they don't know how it works. They did something and it worked, something worked for them. And therefore they shared that information with you. But is it the most efficient, most economical way, right? Not necessarily, right? So that's why it's important to, whoever you're working with is find out more, find out, is this authentic information? Is it actually benefiting you, right? Or is there some other ulterior motive going on, right? So it's very important for you to do your due diligence as well. If no matter what you do, always look into it and learn from that kind of point of view.
Absolutely, because the wrong teacher will misguide you, but the wrong teacher will also teach you in a different way, and a way in which they're not meant to teach you, right? And those lessons can be quite severe and harsh, all right? And it could be a quite turbulent journey. I've had experiences like that, and I've had teachers teach me more than they realize they've taught me by just having, what's the best way to put this? Ulterior motives. Let's just put it that way, right? To make it polite. And therefore you learn more than you bargained for, right? And they don't even realize they taught you that. So sometimes sometimes when we choose bad teachers, those teachers are meant to teach us something, not necessarily by the things that they say and do, that they're teaching us directly, but it's indirect teachings. And if you want to have if you want a certain type of teaching experience, intent, make sure you put that intention out there, because as I say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And in the original Truth book, there's a whole section on that, which actually talks about the different perspectives on the teacher and the student. Okay, because sometimes when the teacher's ready, the student appears. Sometimes when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But then there's the other element, right? That when the student is unready, the teacher disappears. Or the other worst case scenario where the teacher isn't ready, the student disappears, right? So there's these 4 scenarios, right? And each of those 4 scenarios have certain consequences. Okay, and it's really talking about exactly JT's point, which is understanding what kind of teacher you want and what you want that teacher to teach you. The thing is, with your limited understanding, right, with your limited knowledge on something, right, you might be wanting a certain type of teacher, but you'll get the kind of teacher that you need. And that teacher might come in a supportive, loving, kind, compassionate way, or might come in a envious, narcissistic, aggressive, rude, demoralizing, denigrating fashion. Let's just say freaking the complete opposite, right? So it just depends, but you'll still get the teaching you need, right? Well, it's either this teacher or that teacher, but it's still going to teach you the same thing, right? But which one do you need? Which one's going to teach you the cosmic lesson that you need to learn? And you're going to get the one that is right at that moment in time. So just something to bear in mind. Do the best you can, but no choice is a bad choice. That choice is always right by divine perfection, but you won't necessarily see it straight away. So you'll see it when you're ready to see it. So prolonged, perfect practice with perseverance and perspiration. All right. So keep going with that. Again, it comes down to doing the work.
Absolutely.
So JT, one of the things that we forgot to do was show the picture of the actual chapter.
Oh yes.
Right. And the picture of this chapter is an image of a seed that sprouted through what seems to be some boards on the floor. And the actual shoot is cracked through the board, and it's got a flower that's unblossomed and a shoot with a couple of leaves in its infancy of the plant, right? And so that's the image on this one. And I think this is a good time to actually read this. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank a really good friend, a mutual friend of ours. Her name's Shamini Galani. And this koan is based on a quote that she wrote. So this section actually reads, a good friend, Shamini Galani, once said, work on the root, not on the fruit. When you build a house, it is critical that you lay a solid foundation to build the rest of the house on top of it. If the foundations are weak, the house will eventually start to crack and crumble and become uninhabitable. The foundation of the house is its roots. And much like a seed when it's sown, you don't just wait for the flowers to magically blossom. You have to do some work to reap the benefits of the fruits and flowers. You need to sow the seeds in the right season so the climate is conducive for the seeds to grow. Water the seeds regularly. Apply sunshine to the seeds. Ensure the seeds' living conditions are suitable for them to grow. Our successful dreams and aspirations are simply the seeds we nurture to blossom and fruition until one day we are able to enjoy the sweet scent of success of all our hard work. Remember, the harvest is not in the same season as the sowing. You must let nature take its time and course and be patient. Right? So I think we covered that.
Yeah.
Pretty comprehensively and then some. Because when we talk, we go into a lot more depth than what's covered in the book. But the book is an insight into what one needs to discover for themselves. And each person's personal discovery is exactly that. It's personal.
Absolutely, Sifu Lak. I think that's a brilliant note to finish off because we've gone into a lot of information there. And I think, if people are interested in the book, obviously make your way over to martialmindpower.com. And the book we've been reading from is The Art of Thinking Without Thinking. And as Lak showed earlier on, there's another book called The Original Truth. And then you have the Martial Mind Power manual. It's more of a workbook than a manual, right?
That's right, yeah. That one's called Master Your Life.
That one's called Master Your Life, absolutely. So yeah, on that note, Sifu, thank you very much. And folks, we hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, signing out.